Alright, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and in this video today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite games that I've played so far this year, and that being Hogwarts Legacy. Now, I know most people who are around my age, which is around that 18 to 22 range, a lot of us grew up on Harry Potter and read the books a lot in school. I know that's something that I did. I ended up reading through the whole book series in elementary school, and so I was always a really big Harry Potter fan, and I really grew up with the franchise until like the last movies came out and stuff like that. So I mean, I have a lot of love for the overall franchise that is Harry Potter. So I was always wanting a accurate Harry Potter game that would make me feel like I was a student at Hogwarts and having my own little adventure. And I can confidently say that if you are looking for that, you are definitely going to get it in this game. Now, before I go ahead and talk about all the good in this game, I want to go ahead and talk about the things that I didn't like as much, because there's very few things that I have to cover in that area. But with that in mind, let's go ahead and get into the bad right off the bat. First things first, I think at the end of the game, it can kind of drag a little bit, especially at least with my playthrough. I wasn't going around and getting a bunch of collectibles and exploring a whole lot. I was mostly sticking to the main paths and things like that. So when I got to the end game and there really wasn't a whole lot of quests for me to do, I kind of just had to do a bunch of menial tasks in order to get to the point where I could complete the game. That's something that kind of sucked for me, but that may have just been how I decided to play the game and the story, so I can't really blame the developers too much on that. And the other thing that I'd like to talk about is the overall graphics and things like that sometimes. There was more than a few instances where I had fast traveled to a location and then I, loaded in and then everything was like purple and pink and stuff like that. That was really the only main bugs I had other than like some pop-ins here and there for an open world game. And for running it on Xbox Series S, I am very impressed with how the game ran overall. The last thing that wasn't super great in the game was the overall story. Now, there really wasn't too many things that were glaringly bad with the story. I just thought it was a little underwhelming and a little bit boring at times, but that was really about it. Other than that, I really can't say too much about the story besides that at times it could be very uncompelling, and there was some side quests that were a lot more interesting that could have fared better as the main part of the story. Now, with all the bad out of the way, let me go ahead and start gushing about all the things that were really great about this game. First off, I'd like to say the atmosphere and overall vibe that you get from walking around Hogwarts and exploring, the open world and visiting places like Hogsmeade is absolutely incredible. I think the atmosphere with the graphics and the soundtrack really give you, it is so immersive, and it really plays into great escapism. So if you're looking for a game that can kind of get you away from life and take you into a world where you can just be enthralled by everything around you, I think this game probably nails it better than almost any other game I've ever played. To add on to the overall atmosphere of the game, as you progress through the main story, the seasons will actually change. You'll go from, the start at the end of summer to fall, and you'll have the leaves change, you'll have pumpkins pop around, you'll have, I think even in the Great Hall there was, the floating jack-o'-lanterns and stuff like that. But overall, I mean, it had that, it went to winter, and then it came back to spring, and honestly, I was so impressed with how well the game felt like it flowed with a passage of time, so it felt like it wasn't just you going in and doing this all in one day, there was a lot of time that passed in order for you to get where you're at. And let's talk about Hogwarts the castle. I mean, wow, it is incredible. Every dorm room is so interesting and neat, and it's clearly handcrafted by the devs, and there was so much love and care that was put into the areas that you're going to spend a lot of time in. The castles were amazing. There's moving portraits, people in the portraits moving around. There's suits of armor that will chink, or sometimes they'll get into a fight with each other. Only thing that's kind of a little bit disappointing in terms of the castle is even if you are interacting with people, it's only really for quests, and it's only a certain handful of people. And though those people may be involved in cutscenes and things like that, if you're just walking around the school, bumping into people, it's just kind of like you're not even there. And I think there could have been a little more detail put into that to make it even that more immersive. Even by the end of the playthrough, I was still able to find new things in the castle that I still hadn't discovered, and honestly, that's part of the fun and charm of the castle. There's just so much to explore every time you're in it. Now, before I talk too much about the immersion factor, let's go ahead and talk about the combat. Now, I will say I was initially skeptical of how they were going to actually handle the combat in this game, but after, putting in 30 to 40 hours in this game, I can confidently say that the combat is very addictive. There are times in the combat though where it just kind of feels like you're spamming right trigger, especially on some of those later bosses or super tanky enemies like the trolls. But other than that, I think fighting just normal wizards and goblins is incredibly satisfying and you can really string together a lot of combos and have different builds to support your other spells and things like that. And I think that is really fun and very impressive. Another part about the combat that I really enjoyed was these battle arenas that they had, that you would go through waves of enemies and try to stay alive while fighting multiple enemies at once, and you go up to like 5 waves, I think. And it gave you a lot of opportunities to just play around and see what works for you, what doesn't. There's ice spells, fire spells. They got Expelliarmus. They got Accio. They have a bunch of really iconic spells from the game, from the books and other games, including the spell Flipendo. With that, they also have the unforgivable curses, Crucio, Imperium, and Avada Kedavra. And I really enjoyed that. I initially said I wasn't going to be a person who uses the unforgivable curses, but by the end of the playthrough, when I was just trying to get through it faster, especially at the end, I definitely started opening myself up to that, and it is a blast, especially with how many upgrades you can give to your spells to make them more powerful or chain things together better. And it just makes the combat feel so fluid, and it makes you feel like a truly powerful wizard. Now, with combat covered and out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about quests and stories and things like that. I'd say you're given 3 major companions throughout the story. I didn't find the Gryffindor one to be too compelling, but I did find the ending to overall wrap the story up well, especially when she ends up diving in front of you and getting cursed instead of you. I thought that was a very moving moment, even though it was a little bit predictable at times. I thought the other one with Poppy was pretty cool, where you're going around saving beasts from poachers and stuff like that. I found that storyline to be very cool and compelling. And then I think the best story was the one with Sebastian, and I know most of you who've played the game are going to agree with me on that. I personally think the Sebastian storyline probably could have been expanded even a little bit more, and that could have taken the place of the main story and been even more compelling than the actual story that was trying to be told. Just because I think the overall character between, being friends with somebody and understanding where your friend's coming from, and then having to deal with your friend doing things that are more and more towards a line that's uncrossable, and then when that line does get crossed, what are the consequences of that without, getting into spoilers. I think stories like that are a lot more compelling than the story that was being told, where it was just, oh, put down this goblin rebellion because goblins wanted the magic for some reason. Other than that, I don't have too many complaints about the overall story quality and just the overall quality of the character quests around you. I actually enjoyed those quite a bit. Last things I'd like to talk about is, did I enjoy the game? Should you buy the game? And what I would rate it out of 10. I had a lot of fun with this game, and I definitely think this was a much needed change of pace for at least what I was playing recently. And I think this game was a perfect palate cleanser. And I think if you're needing a new game to mix it up the monotony and to revisit a story that you may have fallen out of touch with after the last movie came out with, this is the game for you. Hogwarts Legacy is a good one for you. And finally, to rate it out of 10, in this genre, I would give this game a 9.2 out of 10. This game did so many things right, and though there were a few missteps here and there with the graphic quality and the sometimes boring story, I think this game overall does everything that it is set out to do right. With that in mind, those of you who've played Hogwarts Legacy, what did you think of the game? Let me know in the comments section down below. I do respond to all comments, so with that all in mind, stay hydrated. We will see you in the next video. Peace out, boys.